Now moving on to our committee department reports. Tonight we have the state of the city. There we go. A lot of people asked me how I could prepare for a state of the city when, if you read the newspapers, there seems to be such unfriendly things happening here in the city of Snellville. But besides what you read in the newspaper, we do have a lot of good things that are happening here in our city. So I wanted to take a moment to reflect on where we've been in the past year and where we're going in the next year. And so not Mr. Ewing's history, but the past year since I've been in office, where we've been, and my vision for the city over the next year. So we'll do the next one. So it was my pleasure last November 2011, to be elected the first female mayor. And so this past year was a year of many firsts. Not only was I the first female mayor, but we also, for the first time, put the wall of mayors, the portraits, back up. And as you can see, that was a moment when we had all the former families from the previous mayors come in. It's also our first Martin Luther King Day celebration. We've now had 2 Martin Luther King Day marches, the last one happening just a couple of weeks ago. And you can see it was a huge success with a great crowd. It's also the first time that we've actually embraced our cultural diversity here in the city of Snellville. Our nursery schools had a day around the world, and we had our first Around the World at Snellville Fair, sponsored by STAT, our Snellville Tourism and Trade Organization. We also, thanks to Councilman Mike Sabag, had our first Flag Day celebration here in the city of Snellville. It was a year of first for me. I traveled for the first time to Azerbaijan and Turkey as a representative of our city, along with other elected officials throughout the United States. And we established our first Snellville Arts Commission, which established the Art on the Wall and City Hall program, which you all have seen and enjoyed in the community center. As part of the Art on the Wall at City Hall, we had our first art exhibit of high school artwork here at City Hall. You can see the orchestra from the Brookwood High School orchestra playing, and then you can see some examples of the Brookwood High School students' artwork. They are truly talented students, and we are happy to exhibit their work. We also had our first time that our comptroller applied for an award, and she received it, which is unheard of in first year, for the excellence that she's done in our budgeting. And this year, you'll all remember that we were happy to honor our hometown heroes. We gave a key to the city to both Amy Copeland for her courage and the struggles that she faced. And also, I gave a key to the city to Justin Lansford, Sergeant Justin Lansford, who was a local Brookwood High School graduate that lost his leg while fighting in Afghanistan. We spent the year trying to improve our school relations. I was involved with the junior ROTC along with Councilman Howard. Served as a principal for a day in Norton Elementary School. Councilman Sabag and myself were happy to go and join the students at Britt Elementary and South Gwinnett High School as they saw an exhibition game with the Hawks players. South Gwinnett High School won the Mayor's Cup for the first time in several years. And the South Gwinnett football team made it to the playoffs for the first time in several years. We were happy to support them in their efforts. Also, it was important to me during my first year of office to establish what's called as the Students' Mayoral Roundtable. This is a group of students from South Gwinnett and Brookwood High Schools, student leaders that advise me as youth where they want to see our city going and what's important to them. This is a picture of last year's Student Roundtable, and I'm happy to say that this year we've expanded the Student Roundtable to also include students from Shiloh High School. And of course, we started off the year with a great first. It was the settlement of our service delivery strategy with the county. You can see all the mayors there and the county commissioners as we signed that settlement agreement that brought to close a very long battle we had with the county over whether or not we should be double taxed for services that the county and the city paid. As a result of that settlement, the city now receives a couple of $100,000 each year for our police services, and we received a lump sum payment of about $1 million, which we've put in our reserve fund. So this past year, we've also had some changes in our administration. I had to shrink that picture, Butch. I'm sorry. You look a little odd up there now. We hired a new city manager. We're happy to have Butch Sanders. And for the first time, we performed and completed a performance audit that was done by the University of Georgia Carl Vinson Institute to tell us if our staffing needs are appropriate and if we need to make any changes. The year ahead, we plan on moving forward with evaluating those staffing needs. We're looking at possible new positions, including a grant writer to bring someone in so that we can take advantage of the many grants that are out there, and a public relations position. As we heard tonight during our work session, we're looking at getting Snellville up to date with the times by creating a City of Snellville app, and we're looking at streaming our council meetings live so that Ms. Fleeman doesn't have to spend hours on end editing those videos and putting them on the website. You can watch them live from your home as it happens. We're also talking about preserving the Snellville history and putting a place on our website with oral history of our Snellville residents where they can talk about, as Mr. Ewing has done in his sound bites, the Snellville history, and also doing an app for our cemetery tour. Well, that didn't work, did it? A year in review for our Planning and Economic Development Department. This year we've been great with opening new businesses. These are some of the ribbon cuttings I was able to attend throughout the past year. We've grown from approximately 700 licensed businesses in the past year to over 800 licensed businesses in the city of Snellville. Our Economic Development Department, by the lead of Mr. Van Otten, has established the Snellville Business Toolbox. And we've won awards for being for our entrepreneurship program. This is a picture of the students from South Gwinnett High School who were in the first entrepreneurship class. And that program has grown now to include Snellville Middle School and a partnership with Eastside Medical Center. And I'm happy to say that we've had meetings with George Gomez and Superintendent Will Banks, and they're hoping in the year 2015 to begin a magnet school that will focus on entrepreneurship. That will be based off of what we've done here in the city of Snellville. This year we also had our completion of our Market Street study, and they came up with a plan of what we need to do to develop economic development in the city of Snellville. And so what are we going to do from here on out? You've heard us in past meetings, we're working on developing opportunity zones. With these opportunity zones, businesses that open in these areas can receive up to a $3,500 tax credit for every person that they employ. That's a new job. We've also formed the Mayor's Committee for Economic Development. This committee is working to bring forth the Market Street implementation strategy. They are working currently on devising a proposed ordinance for business incentives so that we can have incentives to attract businesses to vacant buildings, and also incentives to creating new jobs here in the city of Snellville. Not just economic incentives, but also structural incentives such as detention ponds for new development here in the city. We're also looking at annexation. I know everyone on council will probably agree with me that one of our priorities is annexing possibly the avenues at Webb Gym. They've recently been sold to a new developer, and we are working diligently. Our city staff is working to annex them into the city so that we can have that additional tax revenue. A year in review with the police department, we had an opportunity to buy bulletproof vest that was through the Citizens Police Alumni Academy for our K-9 unit. Obviously, the police department this past year has been getting cozy in the new police building that we opened 2 years ago. And we had the annual Shops with a Cop program. And finally, I had the privilege and the honor of swearing in new officers this year. So next year, we're looking at buying video cameras for the city. These video cameras will help our police department, surveillance cameras will help the police department fight crime to see what's happening outside of our city hall. And it will also help us establish Wi-Fi services in and around the town center area. And we'd like to look at possibly hiring additional officers and detectives I know this isn't something the chief would push for, but this is something that I believe is important. And we all are familiar with our police department and how successful each and every one of them is. And so we hope that they will continue that success under the leadership of Chief Whitehead. The Parks Department has been very busy in this past year. You can see before and after pictures. On the left is before and on the right is after photographs of the bathrooms at the park, the renovations that were done, and at the Lakeside Pavilion. After Mayor Pro Tem Witz was helpful in getting insurance money turned back over, we were able to revitalize that pavilion, so it looks like the picture you now see on the right. And you all came out 2 weeks ago to the grand opening of our new field. You can see the before picture of Partee Plaza and the old field and the construction phase. And now we're happy that it's a new multi-purpose field. Our Parks Department was also recognized last year as Best of Gwinnett for the Snellville Days festival that they put on every year. In the year ahead, we're happy to be celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Snellville Days. I am the chair of the Snellville Days Parade, and our theme this year is remembering our present, remembering our past, honoring our present, and celebrating our future. Lordy, Lordy, look who's turning 40, and that's Snellville Days, and we're excited about what's going to be in store for the Snellville Days program this year. That will be the first weekend in May, so please come out and support the Snellville Days program. The park hopefully will find some room in our budget this year to make some much needed repairs to our fencing in the park. You can see that it's not in the best repair. And we hope to move forward with the second phase of Phase 2. The multi-purpose field was Phase 2A. And if you see the softball fields, the double fields, we currently have one field, and we hope to change those into 2 fields for Phase 2B. We hope to pass funding for that in the upcoming SPLOST 2014 SPLOST vote and to begin construction on those in the future. We also, if you remember a few slides ago, I said it was a first for me to travel to Azerbaijan and Turkey, and we helped to upgrade the walking trails along the park. Some of the fitness equipment along the walking trails is older than I am, and thanks to my trip to Turkey, we have a company that's donating these 5 pieces of equipment you see here to the city free of charge, and that will be installed the weekend of March 2nd. We'll have a ribbon cutting ceremony for that equipment on March 4th. Our Public Works Department, Gay Johnson, Craig Barton, that are in the back, they've been busy at work this year as well. We've put in new stormwater projects on Maple Street. We've had paving projects on Inglewood and Cates and Dogwood, I believe that this is showing. In the year ahead, we hope the last SPLOST we had, we did a lot of work with our police department. We did a lot of work with building the new Public Works building. We hope the 2014 SPLOST will focus on paving needs and a master sidewalk plan. So it's my vision that that be the goal of the Public Works Department in the year ahead. So I want to talk about the mayor's vision. I heard a gentleman quote a while ago that if you're a lake, you have water flowing in all different directions. But if you're a river, all the water's flowing in the same direction. And I believe for quite a long time here in the city of Snellville, we've been water flowing in different directions. We haven't been a river flowing in sync because we haven't really discussed our vision for the city of Snellville. So this is my vision for our city going forward. My first priority is to brand our city. We currently have several different logos for our city, but people, one of their main complaints is that they don't know when they're in the city of Snellville. So on the right, you see a sketch that Mr. Davis has provided of a proposed welcome sign for the city of Snellville and location signs for when you're in different places in the city, such as Shop on Scenic on Highway 124. I think that it's important to our city so that people know when they're entering and leaving Snellville based on the branding that we have and the location signs we have around our city. I also would like to work on our parks department. I'd like to establish a passive park system in our city. You can see on the left is a mock-up of what we want to do on Oak Road, the passive park on Oak Road. Hopefully in future SPLOST we'll have money to finish the design for the Oak Road passive park. On the right, though, is 2 other places I'd like to propose we have passive parks. On the top right-hand side is the property across the street from Woodbury. These are currently green spaces that I think is important for us to preserve in our community. On the bottom right-hand side is the green space in front of the Summit Chase subdivision off of Highway 78. These would create passive parks or neighborhood pocket parks in the three central areas of our city. This is a picture of our current town green. The former Mayor Oberholzer and council, including myself, were happy to demolish the old building that was here, and it's come a long way from where it was just a few years ago. But I'd like to take it a step further. Mayor Pro Tem Witz, Councilman Sabag, and myself 2 years ago, were part of this when we came up with ideas for what we could do with the town green. And these are designs that were presented to the council. You can see that it takes and places brick across the street. It takes the landscape of the trees and puts in a small brick wall with small stone wall with brick, larger brick portions to match the facade of the City Hall area. And then it adds welcome signage to the front of it, and the welcome signage pays homage to our farmers market. I'd like to see the council set aside some of the money that we have in our reserve from the SDS settlement to go forward with this concept for our town green area. I also would like to see the council take action on the Wisteria Square property. This is the piece of property that the city already owns. This is more commonly known as the Bridge to Nowhere. I'd like to take this and turn it into something like this. What you see before you is a fountain area, a outdoor stage, and then behind it is a cultural arts center. The fountain area is active during the day, and the fountains can be turned off at nighttime when the staging area is being used. I've encouraged our staff in the past few months to think above what we have done in the city in the past. So often staff has gotten used to cutting cost because the council has always said we have to preserve our budget. And while I don't promote outlandish spending, I think we have to reach for the stars. I'm tired of everyone saying, well, that's the way they do it in Suwanee. I want us to say that's the way they do it in Snellville. When I go to places, I don't want them to say that Snellville is in the most need for redevelopment. I want people to talk about the good things we're doing in Snellville. So this is a rendering that former council member Chad Smith made of a cultural arts center that would fit on the Wisteria Drive property. The pictures on the bottom are pictures of the Buford Cultural Arts Center that recently opened. I arranged for staff, Chief Whitehead, Mr. Sanders and Mr. Davis to take a tour of the Buford Cultural Arts Center a few weeks ago so that we can have some ideas to see what we can make possible here in the city of Snellville. And these are some visions of what an outdoor stage would look like, the dimensions of the bridge to nowhere to be turned into a usable outdoor stage. None of this is going to happen without the cooperation of the council and the city residents. And so I share my vision with you. You may not agree with it. You may not like it. If you don't, I encourage you to come forward with your own vision, because until we start talking about it and until we start moving in a direction together, we're still going to remain the place that everybody thinks needs to be redeveloped. But we have a great staff here in the city of Snellville, a staff that works hard every day and that accomplishes things beyond the festivals that you may see out there in the public. They work hard to make sure that your tax dollars are spent efficiently and effectively. And so I wanted to take this time just to applaud our staff and all of the great things that they have accomplished in this past year. And I look forward to seeing what they come up with in the year ahead. Thank you. And with that, we will turn it over to Mr. Whitaker for the audit report. So it better be good, Mr. Whitaker. We better be on track.
Good evening. I am Jimmy Whitaker, the managing owner of James L. Whitaker PC, and that's your auditing firm. We have completed your audit for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2012, and we have issued an unqualified opinion on the financial statements. I would just like to go over a few things with the mayor and council. If you have your audit book with you and would like to follow along, on page 14, you can see that the city's general fund did end the year in a pretty strong position. The total fund balance amounted to $4,477,000, which is 51.7% of the city's expenses for the year, which is very good. You normally strive for 25%, so the city is doing very good. Of course, a lot of that was contributed to the SDS settlement, which you can see on page 16. The city ended up with a net change in fund balance, a positive $2,016,000, and of that, of course, the city did receive that settlement of approximately $1,500,000, which helped to lead to that. On the page 18, the city's general fund budget provides you with the final budget, the original budget, and then the variance. The expected revenues totaled $11,626,000. The actual revenues received were $11,679,000 for a positive variance of $53,000. The final budget for expenditures amounted to $9,301,000. The actual amounted to $8,656,000, which was $645,000 positive variance. And overall, the city expected a net change in fund balance of $1,000,003, and you actually ended up with $2 million change in fund balance, another positive. On page 20, you can see the activity for the proprietary funds. Again, the solid waste fund did have a net negative operating loss of $510,000. The general fund did transfer in $509,000 to help with the expenses. The stormwater fund ended net income of $410,000. It has a positive fund balance of $1,353,000 at the end of the year. On page 32, it provides you with the information around your intergovernmental revenues and receivables. The city actually recognized $4,557,000 in intergovernmental revenues, of which $2,857,000 came from your SPLOSH monies. $211,000 was from the settlement with the county for the 911 assistance settlement, and $1,331,000 for the overall settlement. Also on page 32, at the bottom of the page, you can see the amounts that were due from the LCI grant fund to the general fund, the SPLOSH 1 fund, and also the SPLOSH 2 fund of $1,080,000. That will be repaid to those funds once the LCI grant monies have been received. So the general fund, the SPLOSH 1 fund, SPLOSH 2 fund actually paid for the purchase of the LCI land during 2012. On page 34 is the property, plant, and equipment transactions. The city actually spent approximately $1,500,000 on land purchases during 2012. Most of that, of course, was the LCI project. You also had to spend approximately $151,000 on the property that was damaged in the flood, where I think you bought it once, sold it once, and then bought it back. So hopefully that won't happen again. You also spent $184,000 on new police vehicles. One last thing on page 36. This is the city's long-term debt. The total amount of the long-term debt amounted to $9,287,000. Of course, most of that is for the debt on this building, which at the end of the year amounted to $4,290,000, and also the police department building, which the balance on it was $3,857,000 at the end of the year. Also on the property on Wisteria that you purchased, I believe last year, $660,000 is left on that. Again, just to reiterate what the mayor said, the city did receive a certificate of excellence in financial reporting for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2011. That is a very good accomplishment by the city's finance department, and definitely something to be praised for, the employees of that department. If you have any questions or comments, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Yes, sir. First of all, thank you very much for being and explaining this to me. And a couple of questions I'm going to ask are the things I don't know, and I'm just trying to get a grasp for it. On one of the funds, let me see, it's on page 47. Let me look at that. See where we're at here. Under the liabilities and fund equity, what constitutes two line items? One is deposits, and the other one is deferred revenue. And because there's quite a bit of a difference, especially the deposits. Is that just money on hand that has not yet been deposited?
What page is that?
47.
47? These deposits. Let's see if I can.
You can get back to me. I mean, it's for information. I don't want to tie the meeting up for that.
Yeah,
I just couldn't determine what it was.
Should know that, $143,000.
Why don't you just get back to me on it? I don't want to hold us up.
I'll get back with you on
Okay,
that.
that's right. The other thing is under fund equity, appropriations for next year's budget, you have 47, you have 490.
Wait just 1 minute. The deposits?
Yes, sir.
Were development department deposits.
From planning and zoning?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the deferred revenue?
Deferred revenue,
Yeah, was that?
217,000?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. That is when you have property taxes and you bill them in November, but you don't collect them within 60 days after year end. Or police fines, probation fines that you haven't collected within 60 days after
Got
year
it.
end, then they're deferred revenues and you recognize them when you
When you
collect
get
them.
them, right, got it.
And
Thanks.
if you'll look on page 14,
Yes, sir.
under the LCI Capital Projects Grant, you'll see deferred revenues of $1,110,000.
Yes, sir. Me too.
That is the grant that you have not received from LCI
LCI.
yet. I'm not exactly sure when you'll receive that, but
While we're there, and again, this is, on page 14, under fund balances,
yes, sir.
you're showing appropriations for 2013, 426,022, unassigned, 3,924,706. But on page 47, you're showing 496,022, and then unassigned 3,854,706. It's a $70,000 difference. I'm not sure which one is correct. I mean, they balance, they come out, you add the two of them together, they come out right.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that and get
Okay,
back with you.
all right, thank you. Just one more question. Actually, and I have one for the city manager, but on page 6 of your other reports,
Yes, sir.
there, on number 9, it says, "The city of Snellville, Georgia was not determined to be a low-risk auditee." I just don't know what a low-risk auditee is.
Well,
and what does
low-risk
that mean.
auditee is, first of all, and this is a single audit because you received or expended more than $500,000 in federal funds, so you have to provide a single audit report to the appropriate federal agency. And when you're doing that, the amount of testing that you have to do can be lowered if you are a low
It's under
risk,
500,000?
low risk.
Okay.
And in order to be low risk, you've got to have an audit, a single audit within the last 2 years.
Okay.
And this is the first single audit you've had over the last 3 years.
Okay, that's great. And the only other thing is, I did notice under the reports that, once again, I think it's the last couple of years, we have had some income reporting deficiencies that showed up. And I just want to, I know this was before your watch, Butch, so this time you're off the hook, but I just want to know, do we have policies, I think you and I have addressed it, we addressed it once, do we have policies now in place that are going to oversee that for us, and are we have written policies in place to make sure this doesn't keep recurring?
We do. We know, as far as the revenue item, we've put together a schedule of monthly revenue sources that will be checked on a monthly basis, as well as, in that, the audit did come up with that finding. We had 2 findings in our audit that we have addressed. That's one. The second one was the debit balance. I think in the accrued liability account, that the $40,000. We actually started addressing that before the audit came out. Jimmy mentioned that to me. We've been in touch with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. There was some, I guess, difference of agreement on our staff between HR and the controller, but we are clarifying that with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. They are apparently waiting on their audit internally to get us a solid final answer on that. But I think now that we have Jimmy's review and his finding here, we know we can fight for that $40,000.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Mr. Whitaker.
Additional questions?
Mayor, just a simple question. As far as the reserve, just for my own information and education, how do you come up with a formula to set aside a fund reserve for the city? And what would be the projected fund that we may be looking at in the next fiscal year?
Well, it's what we come up with, or what is, thought of in the industry as a good reserve, is 25%. That would give you 3 months worth of working capital should something happen to the city's revenues or expenses increase significantly. Right now, you have a 51% ratio. So, but you got to also take into account that settlement did help you considerably.
If I'm not mistaken, we went into last year at 19%.
Yes, sir. Sure did.
Okay, I guess as I was going to kind of follow up with that, the anomaly of last year in SDS, I think, is the anomaly. 19 has kind of been the highest we've ever really been. In the last 7-8 years, if I'm not mistaken. We were down as low as 13-14% at one time based on last year.
I'm not exactly sure what your lowest has been or your highest has been over the last few years.
But 25 as an industry average, I don't know that I've seen any other city that even come close to that. And is that really a true working number? Is 20 acceptable?
Well, it's, I guess it's actually what the city believes they need to have on hand. I've seen cities get hit by hard rains in 2009 and wish they had more than 25%. I've seen cities, I've also seen cities, well, that's true. I've also seen cities, just audited one that had a 300% fund balance. So actually, it's up to the city council and it's recommended that you have a policy that you set a 25% or whatever you want to set, and if you go below that, what are you going to do to get it back up?
Yeah, I guess
It's recommended to have a policy like that.
Yeah, that's basically a number we set. 20 is not unheard of. We use 20 as the number. If that works for us, I guess.
If that works for you, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
That then brings us